All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Deepak Subramony. I am the coordinator for the Educational Technology Graduate Programs at the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, College of Education. And the topic of my little talk here is applying a critical lens to educational technology conferences. And it's kind of a macro level presentation. It's not like zooming in on one tool or one aspect. And it has to do with my background. It has to do with the context I'm coming from. So I am an educational technologist. This is what I do for a living. And I've been doing it since 1998 when I started off as an instructional designer in Singapore. And I've been lucky that Global Campus has been very generous in sending me to so many conferences. OLC Accelerate, AECT. I believe I was sent to AECT twice. I'm not entirely sure. I asked Laura to double check her records because who's keeping track? And AACE eLearn this past year. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to provide like a big picture sort of view on what to look for in these conferences when you go to them. So EdTech, my field, is like the LA of fields. It's like 40 suburbs in search of a city. There's so many different emerging areas, and there's really no center. There's really no centralized authority as to what the field is and what our main tenets or our main beliefs are about. It's just all over the place, just like Los Angeles. And there's multiple entities vying for control and central authority, and the exurbs are expanding uncontrollably into the desert. It just goes on. You'll hear this often at EdTech conferences, that any professor with a laptop considers himself an educational technologist these days. It's not very charitable, but there's some truth in it that once again, because as a field, there is no center, so there is no centralized guidance as to what to do. And so I'm trying to kind of change some of that by providing some of that. And some of you all have been in my courses. I can see some of you in this room, and you've probably heard me say this a lot in my courses too. But we need to really kind of ground ourselves so we know what to do with the field. So AECT, the Association for Educational Communications Technology, is the oldest organization in the field, the oldest professional organization. It used to be called the Department of Audiovisual Instruction, and kind of it evolved from AVI to ECT. AACE, the Association for Advancement of Computing in Education, is the largest. And you've probably been to their conferences. You've probably been to eLearn. You've probably been to EdMedia. You've probably been to Site. And so they have, or Global Learn. So they have these 4 conferences, and they are huge. And they also have the EdIT Lib database. That's one of the biggest scholarly databases in the area of educational technology. And AERA, the American Educational Research Association, has a SIG, a special interest group on IT. And there are many others jostling to get in. So, when it comes to educational technology conferences, you are spoiled for choice. You go Google EdTech conferences, you have 20 of them a month all over the world. Where do you go? And they all want your $600, 600 euros, your registration fee. So what do you do? One of the statements I really believe in, and this used to be said by my mentor at Indiana University where I got my doctorate, was that we as a field have only recently become proficient enough to do harm. For a long time, we were so irrelevant and so superficial that no one really cared what we did. We really weren't much. But recently, yes, we have become big and proficient enough that actually, if our interventions are misapplied, they can actually do harm. So that needs to be something that we need to kind of keep in the back of our mind as we critically examine EdTech conferences and what they have to offer. So how do you navigate that tangled gridlock? As I said, there's 20 conferences a month. What do you do? Where do you even begin? Once again, the LA metaphor. I like LA. I just like giving it a hard time. So how do you need to go? How do you need to get where you need to go without getting stuck in bandwagons or going off course? Because once again, if you look at, emerging technologies are always, a very, very important part of EdTech conferences. And by nature, emerging technologies are always emerging. So every year something new emerges. And the problem with the field is that emerging technologies emerge and disappear so quickly that the research cannot keep up. And once again, that's a problem. I mean, where is the evidence? Where is the hard empirical data to suggest that one intervention or one technology or one tool is better than the other? So educational technology, it says in the name itself, it's about technological interventions. And therefore, it's like, going back to I forget the name of the principle, but basically that when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So when technology is what you got, when it's what you do, then everything starts looking like it needs a technological solution. And so basically that disease is called Techno Centrism. The idea that technology is the ultimate silver bullet solution to all of our educational, social, and moral problems. And also the technology is this value neutral, culturally neutral thing that can be applied all over the world with all kinds of populations with the same effects. These are both fallacies, but we love to believe in them because it's the basis of who we are. And vendors of technologies have multi-billion-dollar reasons to encourage this view that technology is the best solution. And as I tell my students, you can throw the best laptops at your students, but if they're coming hungry to school, that doesn't help them. I mean, you need to feed them first before you can give them technology. But technology looks better. I mean, you have a bond issue in a school district for technology. Everybody is willing to get on board. You have a bond issue for teacher professional development. Who needs that, right? So when you go to these conferences, look at who is presenting. Very often you have presentations, you have sessions that look like they might be science-based, evidence-based sessions, but they are basically advertising and marketing. That they are basically vendors massaging data to push certain proprietary interventions over others. So which is why the critical mindset, the critical outlook is so important. And always look for that unbiased empirical data to back up the claims of effectiveness or efficacy of any given solution, which once again, as I said, is hard to do. I mean, you have a new technology emerging every few months. And by the time someone actually does a randomized double-blind study, if it ever happens, I mean, it happens so rarely, I mean, it's like hen's teeth. But if it happens, by the time that study gets peer-reviewed and published, that technology is outdated, it's gone. Something else taken its place. So, which is one of the ongoing conundrums of the field in general. So, what do you do? And this is something I tell my students as well, that the touchstone, if you want one mantra to go by, it's this one. Always ask the question, whose interests are best served by integrating this particular intervention, whatever is being presented, into my classroom, into my teaching and learning? The correct answer always has to be my students. If their interest is not the one that is most served, and rather if it's the vendor's interest that's being served, then of course that's not appropriate. And so once again, as I said, it is a thicket, it is a tangled gridlock. You need to have that critical mindset to navigate it and to come away with stuff that's actually useful and relevant and effective. Thank you.